Well, hello everybody. Welcome once again to my YouTube channel, my live stream. Today I just want to go over a few ideas on the possibility of this arrest of former President Donald Trump. Later on I'm going to go through this bank failure issue, and then I'm going to go on to part 2 of my thoughts on manifesting. So right now let's talk about the arrest of Donald Trump and what are the double standards involved and what is the possibility of the outcome of this. But I want you to understand one thing. It doesn't matter what happens. What's really going on is that the New World Order, or the cabal, is vying to get their way of total domination. And you think that this has nothing to do with it, you better think again. But we're not going to really get into that aspect of it right now. What I really want to go over is the double standards. First, I want to cover the double standards. So exactly why in the world are we looking at an arrest of Donald Trump when so much has gone on before him? So if you go back to 2012, just 2012, we could go back way further than that. But if you stop and think about the issue of Benghazi, and I'm going to tell you, Benghazi is, as far as I'm concerned, is still raw on my nerves, because it involved the flat-out killing of an American ambassador to cover up arms deals, private arms deals within the United States government, individuals within the United States government, and 3 to 4 in particular. 3 to 4 in particular. So, you know, what exactly am I talking about? Well, it's plain and obvious what has come out. I shouldn't say it's plain and obvious. It's come out that Hillary and Obama were running guns, and the ambassador was uncovering that, and that could not happen. So they let an entire embassy go under siege and left those protecting it high and dry. We know that for the next 2 years that Trey Gowdy led a panel of investigation, and at that time I had a friend who said, oh yeah, he's going to hang Hillary out to dry and blah, 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 blah. And I said, no, he's going to hit a glass ceiling, and absolutely nothing is going to come of it. And guess what? Guess what? I was right. Nothing at all came of the whole ordeal over Benghazi. Nothing. No arrest. Nothing. Just a committee of investigation. That is all. Why on earth do we spend millions and millions of dollars investigating things when we know that it's going to go nowhere. Oh, let's talk about how about the Bundy Ranch, where the federal government was vying for acres and acres and acres of land, saying that they own the land and they want the ranchers who have the rights to run their cattle on the land and graze their cattle on the land. Over the last 150 years, they decide finally they're going to run these farmers off so that they can sell this land. And depending on who you ask, it was either true or not true as to who they were going to send it to or sell it to. And the bottom line was is they had ideas of selling it to the Chinese government to put in solar farms. And well, that argument's going back and forth. Well, no, that's not the case. Oh, yes, it's the case. And the bottom line is that was the case, and Harry Reid and Hillary Clinton and Pelosi were behind the whole thing. So where are the arrests for that? And by the way, constitutionally, it's unconstitutional for the federal government to own any land except for ports of entry and military installations. So we have that in our history as well. Bundy Ranch. 3 years later or so, we take a look at the bird refuge in Oregon, so-called bird refuge. And come to find out, in the bird refuge, the complete perimeter of that bird refuge was the exact dimensions or the exact diameter or followed the exact surveyed lines as the United States' richest uranium deposit. And we now know that whole scandal as Uranium One, where Hillary Clinton personally wanted to sell that particular bird refuge to the Russians in a fire sale for personal gain. Let's go on with Hillary. What about her private email server containing loads and loads and loads and loads of classified email documents, selling to the world's highest bidders the passwords to go onto her email server and collect classified information on countries' infrastructure and military assets? No arrests. And then let's back up, let's say, to Fast and Furious, where we found Obama and Holder and the Alphabet Agency running guns into Mexico so that they could push gun control. And that was a proven thing as well. And yet there were no arrests. So now let's just take a look at what was going on with Donald Trump for the moment. With Donald Trump's case, with Donald Trump's case, we have the prosecutor of New York saying that he has contrived felony charges and has converted those to misdemeanors, and he has taken misdemeanors and converted those to felony charges. And all this is based on campaign finance. And yet we had Hillary and Obama taking money from the Arabs and the Chinese for their finance campaigns. Oh, and don't mention the Russians. But yet we're going to put an arrest out for Donald Trump. Understand this. I personally think that all of the corruption from the local level on up just ought to get cleaned up. But that's never going to happen. And I believe that's not going to happen for a specific reason. And that reason is because we, in our own households, do not want to clean up our own lives. And you know what the biblical principle is. Don't think you're going to pluck the sliver out of somebody else's eye until you take the telephone pole out of your own eye. And that's the problem. We don't want to take the telephone pole out of our own eye, and therefore we'll never, ever clean up the leadership in this country. And the leadership in this country is reflecting who we are. Even though they're not representing us, it is a direct reflection of who we are as the American people. And it's a very disgraceful reflection at that. So that's just my personal take. You can say what you want. You can believe what you want. You can disagree with me. That's fine and dandy. I really don't care. It's good to have disagreements. It's good to have discussions. It's good to have respectful discussions, because if we can't have discussions on these things, the only thing left to do is to go to war over it. And that's what we want to avoid at all cost. So let's talk about for a moment, what are the possible outcomes of the arrest of Donald Trump? So there are those in the political realm and those in the mainstream media and even in alternative media that are saying that people are getting ready for a civil war over the arrest of Donald Trump. First of all, I don't believe that will ever happen. We haven't gone to bat for our own country as a people since Bill Clinton, that's right, since Bill Clinton was selling classified documents on military assets, that is, naval ships and submarines, to the Chinese people when he was in office as the President of the United States. We didn't say anything then. We didn't say anything about Feinstein having 3 Chinese spies in her office. Nothing ever came of that. She knowingly hired 3 Chinese spies, one consecutively after the other, 3 of them in a row. And nothing was done about that. When Trump was elected, we had those in the Democratic Party, aka the Communist Party of the USA, say we need to send out kill squads. Now you can't find that anywhere. I searched all morning for that video footage that I saw when they said that, and you can't find that anywhere anymore. So that is, those links have been destroyed. It's out there somewhere, but those links have been destroyed. But there was no arrest for insurrection when Pelosi and Waters and Feinstein said we need to send out killing squads to kill Republicans over the election of Donald Trump as the President of the United States of America. And according to our Constitution and our base laws, we are to have a transfer of power in a peaceful manner. And there was nothing peaceful about that rhetoric. That was a direct word of threat to other people on our soil, and that is a felony. Oh, by the way, talk about felonies. How about Pelosi ripping up the State of the Union address notes when Donald Trump gave the State of the Union address, and Pelosi ripped them up in defiance after that. That also is a jailable offense, and nothing ever came of that either. So what makes us think that we or anybody has the right to arrest Donald Trump over some sort of campaign finance garbage? The double standards are obvious. And what about we already mentioned Fast and Furious. What about that? What about Holder and the other bozo that was with Obama on the Fast and Furious stuff? And by the way, along with the Randy Weaver ordeal, the person over the ATF, when they shot Randy Weaver's wife in baby, got a lateral transfer and a promotion. Oh, wait a minute. What about the flamethrowers and the tanks in Waco, Texas, over the whatever they call themselves down in Waco, when they were harming nobody? They were harming nobody under Janet Reno and Bill Clinton. Where are the arrests over our course of history? So, I would say, you know, they may arrest Donald Trump, but I will say, they I don't think that anything's going to come of it. And if they do arrest him, you know, are the American people going to go into civil war? No. Nope. Oh, there's a little bit of flab and gab and lip service along all these milestones in history. But have we actually done anything about any of this stuff and more? There's so much going on, and we as the American people have done absolutely nothing about it. And so I don't think that the American people will do anything if Donald Trump is arrested. I just don't think that's going to happen. Shucks, we had the so-called election and all that fiasco this last time around, and here we are doing the same old thing day in and day out. So the rhetoric from the political realm and the rhetoric from all these other areas about there going to be a civil war, that isn't going to happen. There isn't going to be a civil war over the collapse of the banking industry, and that going on to a federal digital currency, and that going on to a global currency, digital currency, and that going into being tracked by the Antichrist. There's not going to be a civil war over that either. How do I know that? Because take a look at what happened during this last COVID pandemic. Just take a look at it. They pushed the whole thing about vaccines and masks, and people swallowed that crazy thing hook, line, and sinker just so they could continue to eat. And that's exactly what will happen over the banking thing. That's exactly what's going to happen if Donald Trump is arrested. That's exactly what's going to happen. People will just continue to go on as they do. But there is one more thing that you need to consider. And that one more thing is the fact that this creates a ripe environment for the next false flag. The next false flag. That's right, false flag. And why do I say the next false flag? Because with all the rhetoric, with all the talk, even though nothing's going to happen, according to how we have watched other countries in their psyops collapse regimes, a false flag can be staged, it can be labeled, and they will say, oh, this is the civil war that we talked about. That's what you need to watch for. You need to watch for a setup of the next, I can't even say it, the next false flag. Because the same way that we see false flags, and I'm not saying things don't happen as far as the realities of the false flags and the outcome, but when you understand the origin and you understand that they are indeed false flags, then you understand that they can in fact occur. and I will explain to you what I'm talking about. So a simple illustration would be when we experienced, as a country, the Boston bombing. And then again, the bird refuge that we now know as Uranium One. Let me explain. So when the Boston bombing happened, I personally knew from 2 different sources, 7 days prior, that a city was going to have a bomb go off. From 2 separate sources from 2 ends of the country. The only thing that nobody knew was which city it would happen in. We couldn't get that nailed down. 7 days to the day that the Boston bombing happened, we knew that it was going to happen. Now you tell me, why did I, as a little tiny worker ant, just doing my little thing to provide for my family, why did I know 7 days prior to the Boston bombing that one major city was going to get a bomb? And I was told, stay out of the big cities for at least 7 days, because on day 7 there's going to be a bomb go off. We don't know where. We know you travel the country, stay out of the big cities. Folks, that is no lie. That's exactly what happened. I was warned 7 days prior to the Boston bombing to stay out of the big cities. Now, I'm going to tell you, did that happen? Absolutely. Was it a false flag? Absolutely. That was an inside job. And then we saw that those coming in, carrying their own fake legs and whatnot, to be stretched out on gurneys. And then the person carrying a gurney was then carried out on another gurney. We saw these things right before our eyes. And yet they arrested patsies. They did not go after the people that actually contrived these particular atrocities that we know as false flags. So the next example I have is the bird refuge with Uranium One. Again, 7 days prior to Lavoy Finnegan being shot in the snow, I knew that it was going to go hot. I was told, in 7 days, this thing is going hot. How did I know? How did I know 7 days before it went hot that it was actually going to go hot? How did I know? The point of the matter is that these things were in the works from the inside out. So my point is to you, forget the Civil War, forget all that nonsense. It isn't going to happen. And if something does happen, straight up, it's a false flag. You heard it from me. I'm saying it. That's my personal take on it. This is my opinion. Is if anything goes down, this is my opinion as to what's going down. A false flag. So there you have it. We've got the history of the double standards, but we're going to arrest Donald Trump. Now, why would we arrest Donald Trump? To stir stuff up and to throw diversion as to where we really need to be focused. And what's going to happen? Not a doggone thing except the possibility of a false flag. So with that, I will send you on your merry way. I do want to mention one thing, that I don't have any sponsors for my videos. I do, however, want to just make you aware of the fact that I do have merchandise that I sell, and when you go to Etsy, Timotheos, Etsy/Timotheos, you will come to my store, and here is one of the items that I sell. This is shown by a friend of mine who took this picture of his father after working on a engine. This picture is in a cutting board for your kitchen or for your man cave, and also in a jigsaw puzzle. I also have other types of landscape photography and all kinds of photographs and all kinds of different merchandise. For instance, these cell phone holders with my photographs on them, as well as coffee mugs and cutting boards and jigsaw puzzles and things like that. If you would like to see more, just go to Timotheos. Just go to Etsy at Timotheos, and there you will see the things I'm talking about. And here is an example of one of the coffee mugs that are available. They're all at a reasonable price. Excuse me. And every sale helps me continue to carry on and build what I'm doing here over the course of time in a very slow fashion. And so with that, I'm going to sign out and get ready to go into prepare for the video on the banking collapse.